So today we're going to be touching on my favorite aquarium in this fish studio, and that's this one right here behind me, and I'm going to take you through it. So let's get into it. So this is one that I've been wanting to show you guys for the longest time, but I really wanted to get through the other two first. And if you kind of missed what happened to this, we went over it on a live stream. Tank shattered during transport. The other one's good, but the moss aquarium is no more. We're getting a new tank, so we'll redo it and do it better than ever. But if you want to check out the build of this tank before it got demolished, you can click the link up top and be taken to that video. So let's get into the new tank. Now the new tank I'm particularly proud of because it's the first time that I tried my hand at doing a scene tank, and we're gonna go into a little bit of a discussion of what I mean by a scene tank, but tons of people have complimented me on it, and they've also really liked it when I brought it to Reefapalooza. So I'm really proud of the tank, I'm really proud of the work, and if you don't like it, that's completely fine. Of course, everything is open to your own interpretation, but I am particularly proud of it because I really like the way it came out. So let's go into the equipment that we're using on this tank. We have a Twin Star 600S, as well as we have a Sun 603B filter, and the filter works quite well. I really like it. And we are also running CO2 on this tank. The tank is a 60S, and it's basically a 60U, but it's cut in half from top to bottom. And a 60U is the one that we did downstairs that I showed you with all the Monte Carlo and whatnot. We've done a couple videos on it. I'll link above if you want to check out that video. Now I used a new type of stone that we recently got in that I've never used nor seen before, and when I opened the box and saw it for the first time, I was absolutely blown away with the way it looked. It just looked amazing and it immediately won me over with what I wanted to do. So in this tank we're using the ancient pagoda stone that I got in, and it's just such a beautiful rock. It has light sandy textures as well as a red hue to it, and overall it just looks like it's something that came out of the desert. It looks very similar to sandstone, and in my opinion it's just truly a beautiful looking stone to do sort of like a desert type theme, and that's what I was going for with this scape. Now it took us quite some time. Between me and Kevin, it took us maybe about an hour to decide on a layout of anything, and Kevin had came up with something and I didn't like it. And if you don't know who Kevin is, he's from Brooklyn Hardscapes. We've gone over him in the past. But overall, I didn't really like the layout, so I shifted it all around and came up with this neat design that I really like. And what I was going for is it's going to mimic the Nile River. Now, if you're not familiar with the Nile River in Egypt, basically if you look on a map, you'll see that it's just all desert, and down the middle of it is where the Nile River runs, and all along that is green because all the plants are growing. Now, it's not completely lush in a forest, but in my mind, I kind of envisioned it as almost like this patch of rainforest that is surrounding the Nile River, and then on the sides you have all this desert, and that's kind of what I wanted to replicate after I kind of started piecing some stones together. So we placed several stones. I only glued one stone, and that was at the very top just to hold this piece in place. Kevin recommended it, and it was a good recommendation. It kind of gives it some more depth and just overall, I don't know, just an appeal to it that I really like. So now in the back corners I placed contra soil, and that was primarily where we were going to put some of the plants that we really wanted to grow, so we really wanted to make sure that they had a good nutrient substrate. And in the rest of it we used regular pull filter sand that you could pick up at really any hardware store for probably about 10 bucks for 50 pounds of it. Really good stuff. But let's get into what we did as far as the planting goes. So first things first with the plants, because it's such a shallow tank, I really wanted to use both fine leaf plants and some really short growing plants, so that's what we did. First up, I have some Christmas moss, but mini Christmas moss in particular on these stones that we sell. And pretty much the stones just help keep it weighted down, but it also kind of resembles like a little miniature forest, and it just eliminates me having to do a whole lot of work, and it's almost using it as a carpet. And we're going to probably do another video on particularly using moss as a carpet, but in just about a month's time this is filled in tremendously and looks already amazing. Also, to accent the moss, I added in a few stems of Stargani repens, and that was to add some sort of texture to the scape overall and make it look like there's different sized trees and kind of give it some different patterns, as well as I used some Gradiola Viscula. I'm gonna butcher that name, but it's just another stem plant, but surprisingly it's gotten dark red under these lights, because these lights, you could see the reflection there. They're freaking amazing. They are costly, but they're amazing. You can see there is that their pointy leaves resemble the Stargani repens. And the Stargani repens has pointier leaves, but they're thicker. So the whole idea here is perspective. You have thicker leaves up front and thinner leaves in the back to create kind of the scene that you're looking at from where you're standing in the world. And that's kind of what we did here. We also added in some Lobelia Cardinalis, and I was afraid that this plant was going to get super big and unruly, but I think it might be a dwarf variation that we've had. I kind of lost track of it, of what it is exactly, if it's the dwarf or the regular. And you can see here it's already growing rather small, which is beautiful because it adds in more textures and more shapes to really look at. And that was the whole thing. You can see I have pretty much the big clump that I took it all from right there. And that's just to add more kind of bushier tones to the inside the rock and whatnot, and really like kind of play with your eyes a little bit. I also added in a little bit of Rotala mini butterfly, and you could see the red stems right there. And they are just a super tiny fine leaf Rotala that I wanted to throw in this tank because I initially did not see the red coloration from the gradiola that it has now, and I was really looking for something with a red color for up front. So I kind of don't really need it, but I left it in there just because it's doing rather well, and I'll probably trim and replant it. Now I did kind of do more of a scattering planting of everything because I wanted it to look natural. So I didn't pick a particular order. I kind of just threw stuff in there, but the moss is quickly overtaking things more than I thought it was. So much so that some of the Stargani repens is actually getting suffocated by the moss. So it might be a problem that I'll have to address here in the future, maybe trim out some of the moss around it, but the moss is just filled in miraculously around everything. And also in the corners here, I have some Rotala Vietnam. Rotala Vietnam is a very fine leafed Rotala. It has these beautiful pink and red colors to it. We'll also get green depending on the light and if you have CO2, but as long as it has a decent light, it'll grow pretty nicely and it'll have those nice pink colorations. I'm actually waiting for that to form such a dense bush that it will also start growing up and out of the aquarium. That's the end goal for that one. And then over in this corner, I have Rotala Waynard, I believe it is, or Funjan. It's one of them, and it's actually from my own private collection. It's not available yet, but it is also another fine leaf plant, but it is a bit bigger leafed than the Rotala Vietnam. The Vietnam is almost like a needle leaf compared, and the Rotala, this Rotala, which I believe is Funjan, I have to double check, might be Waynard. I forgot, I have two of them that are very similar. But yeah, so that one is looking rather well too, and it's starting to really fill in. Same thing with that one, I'm waiting for him to really break the surface of the water, and I think it would look really amazing. But overall, I really haven't added much livestock to it. Of course, you will probably see this red racer snail here, or red racer narite snail, and also I have two olive narite snails. There's one out of the water currently, just chilling on the rock, and I don't know where the other one is, but those I put in here because we did face a bit of a algae problem at first, but as you can see here, there really isn't much algae. Now there is a little hair algae growing there on the rocks, and those we'll probably address in the future. I'll show you how to get rid of that. There's a little there too. I don't know if it's going to show all too well, but there is a little hair algae growing there and there. But this whole tank was covered in like a brown slime algae, and all the rocks were covered in typical green spot algae, which is symptoms of a new tank. But you can see here, after just a month, it's already kind of all gone. The snails really help to keep it at bay, and that's something that I really like to put in these tanks are narite snails. They do really good at cleaning glass, they do really good at cleaning rocks, and they will keep it looking fresh, and they're really easy. Autosinkless are another option, but snails, especially narite snails, are super easy just because they don't require a whole lot, and they do the job really quickly. So and one other thing to note is that the substrate down here is supposed to be all sand, but when we moved the tanks to go to Reefapalooza with, some of the aqua soil got shifted, so I have to get in there and kind of scoop it and put it in the back of the tank again. But overall, it's just supposed to be all the sand up front here. You can see our little snail buddy right there. And that's really it, guys. That is the tank. We'll touch base in a future video having to do with where it's at, maybe in say another month or so. We're still letting things grow out. I'm really wanting those stem plants to get really bushy and really fill in. I don't want it to be any visible area where those plants really are, so I really want them to fill into nice thick bushes. But we'll see how that goes. Anyway, guys, if you learned anything new or really just enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button and leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think of the tank. I have any suggestions as far as the scape, maybe what I should put in it. I still haven't decided if I want to put any fish in any of these because it's more about the scape than anything. But if you have suggestions for the fish or any sort of livestock, maybe shrimp, that I should put in there, let me know. It is a rather small tank, probably only about 8 gallons or so, I think. If you're new here and you don't want to miss any future content having to do with this tank or maybe some of the other ones, make sure you hit that subscribe button there. If you want to support us and our videos, you can head on over to h2oplants.com and pick up some of the plants that you may have saw here today, as well as the stone. If you want to check out how we planted this tank, you can click up top. And if you want to check out how we planted this tank, although it's kind of dead in the water now, you can click down below. And I will see you guys on the next one.